Welcome to season 2 of the Love No Limit show.
Yes.
Where do we begin? I want to begin by saying I am not a professional, and but Rabia is. So that is why she is here. And we are working. Well, I mean, I am not a licensed professional. Maybe I should say it that way. I think that's important to say. I also want to say that as much as I have written about love over the years and talk about it and research it, this self-love journey is still one that I am trying to figure out myself, which I think is important to note, because I want this to be more of a communal conversation as opposed to us sitting here telling you, what we think. I want us to share. I want this to be that kind of experience. What else? I want to thank Rabia Bain.
You're welcome.
Did I say that correctly?
Beautifully.
Who is granting us space to work here and to record here. This is some of her amazing artwork that is behind us. Rabia is a fantastic multidisciplinary artist. That is what I call her, because she's more than just a visual artist. She does all kinds of cool things. I guess I should also mention that this season of the Love No Limit show is brought to you in part by the City of Houston's mayor's office.
Oh.
And
You fancy.
and also Houston, in conjunction with Houston Arts Alliance.
Yeah.
So we went a little situation, little grant situation to bring the Love No Limit show back.
Yeah.
So we are very excited and grateful for the city recognizing and the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs for helping artists continue work that we are doing. So I think that's all of the announcements, right? How y'all feel?
All right.
Everybody got lots of snacks? Is the wine kicked in yet so we can make this good? And I am Josie Pickens, in case, any new folks who are just joining the Love No Limit movement. I'm going to call it a movement. I am an educator. I'm a professor right here in the Trey at Texas Southern University. I teach writing and literature there. I'm also a cultural critic, so essentially I do exactly what that says. I write and speak about cultural phenomena. I'm also a writer and a host right here for this lovely podcast that we are putting back together. And you guys, I want you to introduce yourselves, because I find that is such a fantastic practice, right?
Yeah.
Because so often we don't talk about ourselves. Mm-hmm. We allow other people to big us up. And I think that we should do more of that in practice, of saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer the world. So, JJ.
Good. I'm JJ, Jillian Simmons, former radio and TV host, speaker, author, 3-time author.
3 times? I'm tired, yes.
And self-love coach. And I run a nonprofit organization called JJ's I'm Me Foundation. Philanthropist.
Oh, yes. Please.
I love to give back. And mommy. Mother of an amazing 12-year-old, going on 35, Alani, and single and always ready to meet. No, I'm just kidding.
Just again.
That's enough about me.
So tell us a little bit about I'm Me, and specifically Respect My Crown.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so I'm Me Foundation, we've been around since 2010. We tour middle schools and high schools in Houston and surrounding areas with an 8-week program that empowers young girls to be the best version of themselves. It includes robotics, healthy cooking, goal setting, vision boarding, health and fitness, beauty and style, financial literacy, everything. And yeah, so we've been in the schools for 7 years now, touring, making a really great impact with an amazing team of women. And Respect My Crown is a movement that I started last year. And it's so crazy because God gave me this vision that it was going to be this. And I guess I didn't hear him right. And then God was like, no, that wasn't it. It's a ministry. And I was like, what? A ministry? And so it helps women, it encourages them to dive into spirituality, sisterhood, accountability, and service. And we've really been doing a lot of work around domestic abuse, self-love, and just encouraging women to really get to know who they are and know their worth and put a big stamp on it and show the world who they really are.
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, I got like 13 jobs.
Well, when you count it
When
down
you start
like
talking
that,
out loud, it's like, wow. Yeah.
You're like Ryan Seacrest.
I know, right?
He's the only one I know.
He does it. Yeah.
Rabia.
So I'm Rabia Ilahi. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I like to call myself a relationship therapist because I think we're always working on, I like to focus on the relationship we have with ourselves and then go out from there. So that is sort of self-love, I guess.
Yeah.
Once we build awareness. What else? I'm been married for 12 and a half years. I forgot my wedding ring.
Oh.
Today, I know, right? I was in a and I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old bonus daughter that I married with my husband. What else?
What's the name of your company?
Oh, yes. So,
You're like, oh.
Dharma Integrative Psychotherapy and Wellness, which is a really long title of because I believe in integrating psychotherapy with spirituality, with how you treat yourself health-wise, how we eat, how we sleep, how we move our bodies, all of that. It all kind of goes into one. And I have a private therapy practice.
Well, I have a little private
thing on
therapy
there. Yeah.
practice
That little
that
thing.
she won't let me into.
But you're welcome anytime as a guest.
I'm like, Rabia, would you be my therapist? She's like, actually, how about we just be friends?
Well, someone said the other day, I think it was a client that said, your vibe creates your tribe.
Yeah.
And so, because I feel like I vibe with enlightened women.
Yeah. She kicks us out of the therapy
she's
chair.
Yeah.
She does not allow us. But we'll give some contact information towards the end of the show where folks can reach you if they would like to join you and use your services. She really is amazing. Both of these ladies, we do a lot of work together actually. We've had 5 events.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
5 gatherings.
That have kind of discussed all different types of stages of relationships. We've talked about self-love. We've talked about how to recover from narcissistic relationships, dating a narcissist. That was rough. And we've talked about, how to rebuild oneself and one's life after the demise of a relationship or the end of a relationship. So we have a good time. It sounds really interesting. It sounds heavy.
Yeah.
We always have a good time because we focus on what our topic is today, actually, which is self-love, which can help one maneuver through not only those types of romantic relationships, but all of the relationships that we encounter. As Rabia said, self-love is the foundation for every other type of relationship that you will have, including work relationships,
Family
family relationships,
relationships.
yes, platonic relationships, because we can face difficulties and challenges and even abuse in all of those different kinds of relationships. And when we nurture and practice loving ourselves, then not only can we become better lovers for others, but we can also set proper boundaries and navigate those other relationships when there are challenges and difficulties, right? So I guess we should begin at the beginning with a definition of self-love. How do you define self-love?
Self-love is taking ownership of your well-being and your happiness.
Yeah.
It's self-love is, this is what I know to be true about me, and an acceptance of who I am and what it is that I deserve.
Yes.
And loving all of you completely.
Yeah.
Flaws and all.
Flaws and all. Yeah. I love that definition. And that kind of ties into my definition for self-love too. I think of it as a compass, right? It is like what centers you, and what allows you to maneuver properly through the world. So like you said, when we love ourselves properly and figure out how to do that, because I mean, let's be honest, it's a challenge, particularly when we're talking about Black and brown folks, oppressed folks, when you live within systems that constantly tell you that you should not love yourself, that you are not enough, then it is radical.
Yeah.
To be able to even understand and define self-love, let alone continue to practice it and unravel it and reconnect it. You know, so for me, that is what I am learning, is that it's a compass. So it allows me to say no. It allows me to set boundaries, because when you understand your worthiness, then it's easier for you to say that this is not for me. This is beneath me. And I used to have an issue talking about that. Like, some things it's some things that are beneath me. Okay. And I have had enough experience to be able to say that, but even being able to say that took a lot of self-love work and heart work. Because for so long I was just accepting everything and martyring myself as Black women do so often. So yes, I think that it is that compass that orients you in the world.
Yeah. Which means, to piggyback on what you're saying, to have that compass, there's a knowing, you're learning about who you are and the challenges that who you've been in a way conditioned to be. Not all of it is as pure as you are, your spirit, you know? And so in knowing that, okay, that's not my internal compass. That stuff that has been put on me.
Right.
From a variety of things, conditioning,
socialization,
messages that you've received since you were, tiny.
Right.
And anyway, so it's separating the you from the you that's in the personality, that's affected by all these external factors, and how we learn to cope with what we grow up with, and around. And but once we can separate, we can look at the challenging parts of our behavior without judgment, which I think to build self-love, that is the acceptance. It's in seeing, oh yeah, okay, here's where I'm not my real self, my true self, which is unconditional love. And so do I want to fix that? What do I need to do to either heal that way of being? Because it is a choice once we know. And so we're constantly building self-love and accepting all sides of ourselves with a lot of compassion, because that's not how we're born. That's not the soul. That's just behavior.
Right.
which is often learned.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I'm going to say that the next time I'm acting up.
Yeah.
It's not the soul.
Yes.
This is a behavior
Yeah.
that I am exhibiting in this moment.
Because I learned it. Somehow it worked
Yeah.
for me at some point.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're going to get into that, like,
Yeah.
this journey that I've been on lately of, like, recognizing and reparenting my inner child, which is so much of self-love work because it's so much the root of who we are as people.
Yeah.
And it's the root of every relationship that we have.
Absolutely.
Like realizing, oh, these triggers that I have, a lot of them started out, the decisions that we make that are not the best decisions that we make for ourselves often come from something that we learned as a coping mechanism in our childhood. Even when we've had quote unquote decent, or good upbringings or good childhoods, there is still, again, bringing up this idea of being in a marginalized group, whether that, being a girl child who becomes a woman, or being Black or brown, or, any of those types of experiences, we learn these coping mechanisms to survive. So even if we've had good lives, like one thing that I am unraveling as a mother is trying to understand, first of all, how to cultivate healthy self-love practices and understandings for my own daughter, which makes me have to think back to my own childhood. And one thing that I've been thinking about, for instance, is this idea of love versus care. And how so often for Black people, love is a practice of care instead of maybe what should be more loving, nurturing relationships, right? So it's like, your parents providing for you, like a roof over your head, food in your belly. I don't need to tell you I love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm showing you. And in some ways that is true, especially when you come from an extended experience, a cultural experience where that was not always easy. You know what I mean? Like the challenge of being able to provide a roof over your children's head or provide enough food for them to eat is like a real demonstration of love in a time when it took all of you to do that. You know what I mean? Everything that you had to do that. So we'll get back to that. Just bringing that up.
Yeah.
But and like figuring out how to shift that. Because so often what we describe as like these generational curses is really just traumatic experiences that we have not addressed. Right, Robbie?
Yes.
I be listening. But so we're talking about what self-love is, and of course we know that self-love and worthiness are connected. Understanding that we are enough as we stand. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I found myself adding something on to that, like, you deserve love and care even if this, and it's like, no, period. The even if, scratch through that. It's so important for us to know that as we exist in the world, we deserve love, care, support, like all of those things.
Yes.
So what is self-love not? What isn't self-love?
So what isn't self-love, the way I see it, is anything that doesn't serve my highest good. And so I don't even have to know what is my highest good. But I know getting myself into debt is not self-love.
Right.
Because that's going to create a lot more anxiety for me.
And stress.
I know that allowing myself to be around people where I feel less than, which is my own thing, but if I feel like, you don't have anything good to say about anything,
right,
that's not loving for me to be with them, because we are what we put into our, exactly. So we're consuming, eating wise, listening wise, vision wise, thoughts wise. And because so much of the world is focused on fear, don't do this, or that's bad, and that has a purpose, but we have to continue to sort of like curate. I love the word
because
curate.
that's what it is.
Yeah. So if we're not curating our highest good, or what feels where we're at peace, then that's not self-care. Even getting a massage, which I'm all for massages, but if it's going to hurt me in some way, and hurt, I don't mean physically. I mean on a spiritual level, then I can't do it. I have to go somewhere else where it's more in alignment with who I am.
I think also a part of this conversation about what self-love isn't is delving into how self-love connects to capitalism now.
Yes. Yeah.
Self-love and self-care is all about spa days and
red bottoms
and badass brunches and
Oh my gosh. If I see one more brunch.
the brunches, and it's like, all of those things are good and can be joyful experiences in the moment, but we also have to understand that self-love is also things like calling yourself out on your shit. It's accountability. We don't talk about that aspect of self-love, but we are constantly bombarded with like, that's the new way, is to talk about loving ourselves through a capitalist lens, and that is like super troubling. And you brought up something that is so important, because it's something that I kind of went through about a year or so ago, is kind of evaluating my relationships and realizing that so many of us, if we are in abusive relationships with our platonic friends and family members. Like, I know how to get the hell out of a romantic partnership that isn't working, right? But like friendships, like my homegirls who, are around because they're trying to see what I'm doing, or not fully supporting, or negative in so many ways, like breaking those relationships, breaking up with those people, family members. I've even had experiences with family members where I was just like, hey, listen, I love you, but no. I can't listen to this right now.
Yeah.
I actually just finished up teaching in summer class, and I would give my students an opportunity to do hot topic segments, so they could go on like the shade room or whatever. I teach 18-year-olds. So I'm like, go on the shade room, find a topic, and we will read about the topic. I'll find an actual article that discusses it in my shade room comments. And then we will provide critical analysis and talk about what is happening. And one day, a group of students wanted to talk about Black China and Tokyo Toni, which is her mother. And they are in this awfully toxic relationship. And it was so interesting to me to see these 18-year-olds who understood a need for detachment. See, my mama couldn't. That's her mama. I understand that's your mama, but your mama can't treat you like listening to these young kids talk like this. I was like, I wish I had those tools. Like, I wish that I knew it was wrong for family members that I honored and respected to mistreat me, and to be able to say, I don't care who you are in my life, I deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. And if you can't give me that, then we're going to have to figure out how to separate in some way. So I introduced them to the term compassionate detachment. Right? And I was so proud of myself. I was like, it's so proud of them. So I think the younger generation, for some reason, are just grasping things in ways that, and operating out of spaces of shame and fear in the ways that we did. So I think self-love is also part of self-accountability, is taking that inventory, which is hard.
Especially with people who are so close to you, because you feel like, you know, and I speak about my relationship with my mother, which is non-existent. So, and it was a decision that I had to make, and it took me coming out of an abusive relationship to then survey the people around me. And then it's like, she stuck out like a sore thumb. It was like, oh crap. Yeah. You're so much like this person that this is why I select these types of men, because I'm so used to this mental and emotional and verbal abuse. Yeah. And
that you've normalized because it's your mother.
It's your mom. And when you're growing up, you don't know any different. Right. I don't know that this isn't normal because this is what happens in my house. Right. I don't go to somebody else's house, and spend months and months. So I had to make that decision for me, and my parents were divorced. So my father never spoke badly about my mother until I had to make this decision. And he asked me, I can't tell you what to do. Are you sure this is something you want to do? I said, I have to part ways. And finally he opened up about her just being so destructive was the word he used. She's destructive. And I believe that my mother has a personality disorder. And even though she hasn't been diagnosed, but so when you think about it, what stuck out to me is that she wasn't able to help me during a time I needed healing. And this is my mother. I need you to be here for me, and if you can't be here during this time, because this is crucial, because I'm already ready to jump off a bridge. Right. Then I need to part ways. And what happened was when I separated myself, and it was a conversation, it was like, hey, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I was lucky enough I left the state where I didn't have to have, she wasn't there. Right. But then I realized like a whole new world opened up when she wasn't around. I didn't have to hear her opinion on things. And, and I didn't have to worry about when my daughter goes to her house, is she being treated how I was when I was little? And it was okay. It became okay. Yeah. And true enough, you have friends that are like, I can't believe you don't have a relationship with your mother. It's your mom. You need to call her. Honor thy parents. And it's like, hey, I'm honoring myself first. Yeah. And I also am honoring her by sharing this story to other people. Yes. Because it doesn't mean I don't love her. Right. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that she didn't do the best that she could with the tools that she had either. Yeah. Ooh, that moment of compassion and grace. Yeah. But it just means that for me, in order to go where I'm trying to go in the world, if you aren't contributing to making my life better, then you don't have a seat at this table right now. Because I am trying to heal, and I have to be an example to this other little human being that I am molding. This is my responsibility to mold her. And I need to have her know that this is self-love. Yeah. Saying that I will not have toxic people around me is self-love. Right. And you deserve that. Period. And my daughter would say that too. Period. That's me in class all the time now. Oh my gosh. I need to take your class. And this assignment is due on Wednesday. Period. But it's such a, Black girl magic. Like we figure out that is a proper punctuation. Like sometimes you need to say that. I used to say end stop. So end stop, which is basically a period. Right? And so, but I'm like, City Girls gave me the new word, which is an old word now, but I still use it. The kids change their lingo like every 2 weeks tomorrow. But it's so interesting that you brought that up, because when I was talking to my students, and this is to bring Black men into the conversation, particularly I teach at an HBCU, and so a majority of my students are Black. This summer I had about half and half in the class that I was teaching. And when we talked about Tokyo Tony and Black China, the male students, my Black girl students was like, I don't care if it is her mama, very clear on that. But my Black male students were like, but that's her mama though. Oh, well, of course. And what it made me consider and think about was, because when we talk about
toxic masculinity and these ideas about masculinity. We never really have conversations about the root. And sadly and unfortunately, there's a component of that conversation that Black women have to take ownership in. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what Black boys and Black men learn about manhood, and especially the toxic aspects of manhood, they learn from their mothers and the women in their lives. So here were these, Black boys who were like, I don't care what my mama does to me, that's my mama. Yeah. And it's just something that I just had that aha moment, and I was like, oh, and so this is where the cycle of abuse begins, because that's my mama. I can't abuse my mama.
Yeah.
But now I have issues with women because that primal relationship is damaged.
Yeah. Oh, Josie.
Those primal relationships. Like, if we're going to talk about how we define self-love, we cannot not begin there. Yeah. With, like I said, this idea of, and I don't know if you all are familiar with this concept of your inner child and reparenting your inner child, but it is essentially you as an adult parenting the child that you are, the child that's inside, the child that didn't get enough nurturing, that didn't get enough hugs, that wasn't told I love you. Like in my household, for instance, there was no real affection, especially at a certain age. And it's not that my parents didn't love me or one another, but there was never a display of that, an outward display of that. I didn't grow up hearing, I love you. I didn't grow up with that kind of nurturing. And so what I found is the relationships that I would build would be with people who were emotionally unavailable. Because that's what I gravitated towards, because that's what I knew and that's what I was taught. And I longed for it, that kind of nurturing and love and support, and never got it. And so I continued to do that in relationships, particularly romantic relationships, right? Ending up with people who could not satisfy that desire for being, loved and cared for and nurtured. But also doing this thing where I was constantly trying to prove that I was worthy of that.
Get off my street.
I'm too loud. And that is something that I just kind of figured out the root of. Like, oh, this goes back to my primal relationships.
Yeah. Did you do that on your own, or did it take you sitting down on someone's couch to figure that out?
A combination of all of those things. I read it was this meme the other day, and I posted it on Instagram where it was like, either go to therapy or, it's 2019. It said people are doing one of two things, either going to therapy or starting a podcast.
Yeah. I saw that, yeah.
Here I am. But for me, even before, starting the podcast, that's how I started writing about love and relationships, because I was so broken and I needed somewhere for it to go. And this was in the early 2000s, like 2005, 2006, something like that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to start one of these blog things on WordPress. And just started sharing, because at the time I was, going through troubles in my marriage, which eventually ended in divorce. And I felt like I was so alone. And I felt like I didn't know shit about relationships. Nothing. My parents had been married for almost 40 years before my father passed away. Literally all of the people that I knew growing up, all of my aunts, uncles, everybody that we were around were married, and I still knew nothing about marriage. How to sustain that, what the expectations were. The first time I broke down in a therapist's chair was after I got married and had my daughter. And I remember going to the therapy office and telling my therapist, like, I feel like a slave. And I hate it.
Yeah.
And I want my life back. And I also feel exceptionally selfish and terrible for feeling this way. And I'm depressed.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I remember going in and I had a list of like all of the things that I wanted to discuss. Courtney, like a good Virgo. I'm not a Virgo, but that's some Virgo business, okay? Virgo. Beyonce is a Virgo. That's how I explain to people like Virgo. One of my best friends is a Virgo. So I'm always like, oh, them Virgos. People will be like, well, what is it about Virgo? I was like, Beyonce is a Virgo. So just take it from there. Like that work ethic, that attention to detail. So I'm a Scorpio, so we kind of share some of those same traits. And I went into the therapist's office with like my list. These are the things that I would like to discuss. I think that I might have some other issues here. I'm having problems in my marriage because of this. And she was like, well, why are you here today? And I just started wailing. And I remember telling her I felt so guilty because I was like, here I am with one child, living a middle-class life. I'm married, I'm educated, I have so much access to everything, and I'm miserable. My grandmother had 11 children in Deep South. She was a farmer. She farmed in between having 11 children. She was pregnant her entire adult life. I think she was pregnant at one point at the same time that her oldest son's wife was pregnant. Like, that's what a life, And what a life. And here I am complaining about this little insignificant, thing. And I remember my therapist saying, why your grandmother wasn't depressed? How she wasn't going through? She didn't have a therapist to talk to, And then that made me start having conversations with my mother, which helped me to see her as a human being as opposed to my mother, which was so beneficial. And all of this, as I said, is tied to self-love because all of this is a part of your self-love story and how you come to see yourself and love yourself.
Yeah. And you went through that when you became a mother.
Yeah.
And so
it's also when I became a feminist. Because I was like, oh, this is some bullshit.
Because no one tells us that becoming a parent is a death of your life before.
Nobody tells you that.
And we need to mourn and have a ritual around that shift because it's such a big shift.
And
you
expectation. And there's nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yes. No. Someone's always going to have it worse than you do. And so that's what you'll hear, leading to your own sort of, I'm so stupid for feeling this way. I'm ungrateful. I'm this and that.
Yeah. All of the shame. There's so much shame around motherhood. Shame around, being a woman and just wanting to live a free, independent life, period. Like, one thing that I love about my daughter is, she says, if I get married instead of when, be like, yes. You sure? I mean, you can live whatever kind of life that you want. If you want to get, then in the back, I'm like dancing. Like, yes, throw that if in there, girl, because that doesn't, your life does not have to begin or end or evolve around marriage and children. There's so much more to experience in life than that.
That's good.
Which your grandmother didn't have access to all of that.
Not even a thought.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine wanting to be pregnant that many times. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure. Hey, I met a lady the other day who has like 8 children, and today, like, she's younger than me actually. I'm 42. She's like in her 30s. She has 8 children, and she's so excited. She was like, "Yeah, my husband wants another one," and I was like, "Horror! You should have seen my face talking to this lady. She might have been a zombie in the apocalypse." Okay, I was like, "And you, by choice, you have chosen this life." But yes, parenting is amazing for all the non-parents.
Yeah.
In the I mean, it is a blessed experience.
Oh,
it changes you and challenges you and grows you in a way that nothing else will.
Well, there are little teachers,
Yeah,
you know.
but
It's hard.
And
It's
so,
hard as hell.
And then it helps us to remember that in the same way, or it helps me to remember that in the same ways that I'm doing the best that I can with my daughter. And I try to do check-ins. The other day I was like, does your face light up when you see me, Nayla? That was my daughter's name. And she was like, oh, sometimes, because she's 13 and she hates everything, including me sometimes. But I read somewhere that is the way that you are supposed to be in a home. Like when your children see you, their faces are supposed to light up, right? My mom was not asking any questions about whether I was happy or, you know. So I think being a mother is helping me to understand like the difficulties that my mother, and that she was doing and is doing still, because she's still parenting, because you never stop parenting. She is doing the best that she can. And how does that kind of acknowledgement of those primal relationships and forgiveness, how does that work into our self-love experience?
Well, it's so necessary to have the conversations that go deeper than what you do at school today, you know, and get into feeling, because really in creating an environment that produces good feelings, loving feelings for ourselves, that's a lot of where self-love and wellness and mental and emotional health grow. So your daughter has someone asking her to go inside herself, to talk about her feelings, which means paying attention to her feelings.
Can you call her and tell her that?
Because it got to come from somebody else. Right? I'll tell her. Come to me.
Can you tell her I'm doing a good job? No, but yes, it that's what helps again to orient us.
Yeah.
You mentioned, like the reparenting yourself, and I think about, growing up from birth until I was 7. My mother was a Playboy bunny, and so she worked in like a real Playboy bunny, like she worked in the Playboy Bunny Club. So when I step back and I take a look at who my mother was for those first 7 years, it was about looks. It was a lot about how do I look on the inside. And, growing up, I remember my mother saying, we couldn't even go to church and I had to wear lip gloss. Like, you're not gonna put some lip gloss, put something on your face. And I'm like, geez, which told me what is the story I was telling myself? I'm not good enough. I'm not. But I had to, it's not even until I'm an adult that I realized, looking back, well, she's always been about appearance.
Right.
These were the tools that she had. So
tools for survival.
And this is
right?
This is her paycheck.
This is her paycheck.
So now I can look back and I can say, let me forgive, right? There's a part of forgiveness once you have that understanding that it has to appear. Because once you know. So, okay, cool. So now I'm raising a daughter who happens to love lip gloss, and I'm always, you don't have to. But we have conversations about it. Well, why do you feel like you need to wear it? Why do you feel like you need to wear mascara to school? Like, why? And so it is great to know, your daughter's mother, she's woke, okay? So y'all gonna have different types of conversations. Right. And if we would just talk more to these young people and listen more, because really it's about the listening. So it's asking the right questions, then we are gonna have a whole generation that understands self-love a lot more.
Right.
We can, my daughter, I went to Australia where they don't have capitalism, right? So there's no messages being shoved down their throats. Those kids, they don't have makeup on. It was like a whole nother world. y'all know who Beyonce is? And I'm like, they thought I looked like Kelly Rowland. I was like, oh, young child. They just have no clue, but I loved it because they're so pure. They just seem so
and free.
And they're so free. They are
Yeah.
so free because they just don't know any different. I'm like, that's what I want for my daughter.
I'm telling you, I had a moment the other day where I was trying to unpack, like, I don't know if you guys have seen, like, what is it called? Black Lady Sketch Show? A Black Lady Sketch Show?
Oh.
And there's that one segment that is in there where the one with, where she's like, you know, I'm tired of being a bad bitch. I just want to be a regular bitch. I felt that. Because, and I have been like, really having this moment where I'm like, you know,
You tired of being a bad bitch?
Yeah.
it's a lot of pressure. It's Megan Thee Stallion and this hot girl summer shit. And my knees bad and my back hurt. No, but like I had this moment where I was really trying to get to the root of like, why do you feel like it's so necessary for you to? Because I will literally like, if I can't. There are moments, and they are less now, but there are moments where I just won't go to events or go to places because I feel like I can't pull my look together.
Listen here, Josie.
That's real
It's real.
talk.
Yeah, it is.
It's real. I've had to, y'all.
That ain't freedom.
It's not. And this is the thing, and I think this is good to discuss because it doesn't mean that you don't love yourself.
Right.
And these are moments, right? And this shows you that it's a process. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's important to see it as like that accountability part that comes with self-love. Like, okay, I think I love myself, but you know, you can't leave the house without a foundation garment on, girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you gotta draw your brows in every time that you leave the house, and it's like, and then it becomes a mask that you wear. So I'll be out and people will be like, oh, you look amazing as usual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, do I really, and is this really who I am, or is this a mask that I am putting on to the world, and like, what is the root of it?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've realized is the root of it is like some internalized fat phobia for myself, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm not thin, or I'm not this particular standard of beauty, so that means that I have to go all this extra mile in order to be seen as attractive, in order to be seen as worthy, which is really at the root of attractiveness, right? That's some hard work.
It is.
I don't like it.
No.
I don't.
Well, you know,
I felt that girl. She was like, I just want to be. And then Angela Bassett was like, you can be a regular bitch as long as you ain't a basic bitch. Okay. All right. We working on being a regular bitch this week.
You know, I think words matter so much.
Yeah.
And words used in the thoughts we think.
Yeah.
The internal words, you know? And we're so marginalized anyway, and the culture is very much visual. So, like, everyone's comparing to somebody else.
Right.
And then the fear is, well, I'm not comparing myself, but maybe other people are comparing me, you know?
Right.
So it's all like stuck in our head.
And do we escape comparing ourselves?
On some level, I think if
I'm trying to figure out
comparison
when do
is,
you get there?
I don't know, because it's like asking yourself, am I in this better than, less than mindset?
Yeah.
Is something better or less than whatever?
Right.
And when that's going on, I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah.
Because think about how you feel.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
And it's like, how do you escape that in like Instagram culture?
Well,
and image culture and social media culture where everybody's lying on the internet anyway.
because it has to be in balance.
Yeah.
So it's what are you doing when you're not on the internet,
Right.
or on Instagram? And I do think if we can be clear that, okay, right now I'm choosing to project an image because it feeds XYZ, in that awareness, I think a shift starts to happen.
Yeah.
You know, which is what I have to do with myself. It's like, okay, if I know I'm doing something for business,
Right.
I'm very clear. Well, work on being very clear. And then I see how it can be meaningful to me and love-inducing
Right.
for me. So I'm not out of alignment even if I'm posting a mask. Because I'm very clear on the intention behind it.
Right. This is,
You know, and the intention
that's-
isn't against somebody else.
and that's so hard.
It is
when
really hard.
So much of who we are as individuals has become branding.
Yeah.
Speak on it, JJ. And then we're gonna take questions.
You know, I'll be really transparent. So I live with this skin condition called vitiligo. Most people know what it is, right? People associate it with Michael Jackson. I too am bad.
But not that bad.
A little bit bad. So, you know, I talk about this in my book, Without Bruises. I was in a relationship with someone, and at the time I only had 2 spots, and he told me he hated it. And so then that went into, you know, listening to someone else's words about me and trying to figure out, well, I mean, is it bad? And then it starts to grow, right? And the more that it's growing, the more I'm starting to remember these words that he told me, and then I'm starting to believe. And then, you know, I'm having to tell myself a new story about my skin because now it's years later and it's grown tremendously. I have spots all over my body. It used to be a time like a couple of years ago where I could wear a bikini and I could be on Instagram and sit a certain way. You may not see my spots, and I was so conscious of it. You know, if I just sit like this, you can't now, and stress grows it. And we know that the last 2 years of my life have been extremely stressful. So now there's no hiding it anymore. All my stuff is in storage. I have a light box machine. It's a $6,000 machine I got on insurance for $600 that I can stand in this like almost like a tanning booth that can help my skin, and it's in storage. So now what, Jillian?
Right.
Now you don't have a go-to. Now you have to accept that this is what it is. And so what story am I telling myself about my skin? Also, my daughter, when she first saw my spots, my daughter came into the bathroom, and I'll never forget, she was like 5 years old, and you know, your kids be all in the bathrooms. And so, still.
Yeah.
And she said, she was just had this like sad face, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? She's like, I want that. And I was like, you want what? And she was like, why doesn't my skin have that? And I was like, these spots? And she's like, yeah, I want that. Why don't I have that? And I was just like, you know, I'm done. Because my daughter doesn't see it as a flaw, you know, or she doesn't see it as anything wrong, because this is all she knows, you know, and she thinks it's something she desires.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. It's exotic. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, I need your thinking. Like,
Right.
I need to think that pure thoughts that you have is how I should be looking at myself in the mirror. And I say this to say, it doesn't mean that I don't love myself. It doesn't mean that I'm not confident. You know what I mean? But there are things that we just have to work on, and it is a progression. Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, now that they're unhideable and they're everywhere now, it's like there's no hiding it anymore. Right. So now you got to face this like head on. This is what it is. There was a time it wasn't on my face. Now it's starting to be on my face. Who knows what it's going to be a year from now? I don't know. So now I am making an extra effort to look at myself naked in the mirror and tell myself, my dear girl,
we're coming up
fine.
on that. That will be a part of the next session and part of conversation.
It's It's necessary. So, but for me, it's this. You know, for someone else, it's their weight. For someone else, it's something else. You know what I mean? And it's like,
and we all have it.
We all have it.
We all have
it. And it's, you know, I kind of looked at it like, not, once again, we talk about comparison. For me, it was, well, at least if it was a weight issue, I could fix it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is something, it's unfixable.
Yeah. Right.
There's but then it's like, Jillian, what are you fixing? Why do you feel like it needs to be fixed?
Right.
If you really look at yourself and you say, you are beautiful, God designed you this way.
Right.
And then I came to the conclusion on why I created my own why. Good. Okay. I was like, I go to these schools and I talk to girls about self-love and I have a story to share. I'm able to tell them, you know what, there was a time when somebody, my own mother, told me, you should tattoo over your skin and see if maybe you could get tattoos brown. I need to show you that this is not how it should be.
Right.
That you really need to love and accept yourself exactly who you are. If you are different, embrace your uniqueness and keep it fucking moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Isn't that something?
Girl.
So like, and that's another part of defining self-love and figuring self-love out, is that it can be such an inspiration and ministry to other people when you are able to walk closer towards, because I don't think anybody is there.
Oh yeah.
I remember watching Homecoming with Beyonce and being like, Beyonce is struggling. Now her comparison is herself. I mean, because who else? But I mean, even pre-baby Beyonce and post-baby Beyonce and her body and all of that, like, I saw a lot of pain and struggle in that film.
Yeah.
That I couldn't talk about because the Beehive don't be letting you say nothing. But yeah, it's but the Beehive is not having.
Doesn't that show how strong or how powerful Beyonce is?
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
like, who doesn't struggle?
Right.
And so if she can struggle and still, you know, do what she does, what she loves to do, doesn't that give permission?
Yeah.
So back to the Beehive, like it's permission when struggle is represented in the package that is Beyonce. Right. You know? Right. And the human
but are
part
we even
of her.
able to view it as struggle? Like, I don't even think we were able to have those kinds of conversations when it came out. Like, conversations about like her diet and what she was doing to her body to get it to this certain point. And like her even saying, I ain't doing this shit again. Ever. You know what I mean? And how that could have been an entire mood and energy. You know what I mean? Like, I am not going to do this to myself in order to achieve this standard, even if the standard is me. Right? Even if I'm the standard. You know, or a past me is the standard. All right. So, anybody have any questions? This is the question and answer segment, I think. Let me look at the time. Yes, we are past that. But we are going to take questions anyway. Does anybody have any questions for, probably not me, but maybe Robbie? Anybody?
When y'all were talking about narratives and the internal narrative, so what are some good, I guess, practices when you're trying to recreate the narrative within yourself?
Telling those better stories.
Telling yourself better stories about yourself.
For, you know, I feel like when it comes to self-love, there are these layers we have to peel back, right? So there's the self-awareness. So, you know, who am I? I gotta know this first, right? Who am I? And it's everything about you. It's your morals, your desires, your truth, you know, who am I? And then we peel back self-confidence, right? So that's the trusting. So now I know myself, I trust myself, and then now I can really love myself because I have all of those pieces, you know. But self-awareness, I don't think we even give ourselves enough time to experience that, because that is so ugly. Seeing who you are isn't always pretty, you know? Like, there are things about us, all of us, that it's just like, if we really dug deep, we'd be like, ooh, girl, put it back. Put it back in the bag. And so for me, it's like creating this narrative causes me to have to peel back all of these different layers in order to get to that place where I can truly say, like, I love me.
Yeah. For me, I think when I catch, first of all, it's being able to recognize when self-talk is happening. Because a lot of us don't even realize, like, when we are speaking so badly to ourselves. So I think first it's that, being like, oh, I just said this to myself, and girl, that's not true. First of all, and second of all, would you talk to your mama like that? Would you talk to somebody that you love like that? Is a real question. When you can recognize that self-talk, like, what would you tell a person that you love and care about in response to what you just said, if they would have said that to you?
Self-compassion.
Yeah.
If they would have said what you just said to yourself, if one of your friends that you love said that to you about themselves, what would your response be? And give that grace to yourself. Like, that's, but first it's like, girl, that's not even true. Like, that's a lie. You're lying to yourself. And I mean, sometimes it gets rough and rugged. Those conversations might happen out loud. I'll be in the house with my daughter and be like, Mom, who are you talking to? To myself. I do not appreciate
How I just talked to myself.
Josie, the way that you are talking to Josie. Josie. I think that is, like, definitely a part of it, like, switching the narrative. And then, like, affirmations. And as we move forward, one of the things that we're going to talk about is, like, full acceptance and that mirror time, like being completely bare and nude in all ways. And that includes vulnerability, right? That includes taking off the mask and being naked in every way, you know? And then what do you have to say then? Like, what is the story? And figuring out how to affirm yourself in those moments. And it just always, for me, it just goes back to, you're enough and you deserve, bitch, you deserve. Which is what I tell my girls all the time, right? Sometimes when I probably shouldn't be telling them, because I'm the friend that, like, whenever you are about to do something completely, probably not in your best interest, maybe, but fun, you know, call me. Because I'm like, girl, I mean, do it, shit. You know, so I've just remembered to talk to myself in the same way. Like, you know, try it, do it. Like, you know, finding those affirmations and constantly telling myself, like, you deserve. Because one thing that I know that I struggle with is like imposter syndrome. My friends are always like, girl, you know everybody. You have all of these connections and all of this. Like, I've been in rooms that I'm still amazed that I was in and couldn't even enjoy being in those rooms because at the time I was so focused on feeling like I didn't belong there. But I understand it. No, you were there. And Michelle Obama talks about this, where she says half the people in the room don't belong there and don't deserve to be there as much as you deserve to be there. And so part of, like, that internal conversation that I have to have around imposter syndrome is exactly that. You are worthy, you're enough, you deserve. And girl, you deserve. Yeah. Exactly. And so I have to constantly tell myself that.
Isn't it important to understand when you love yourself enough that you are creating a vibration that is opening doors to so much? You know what I mean? Like, you talk about the more that you love yourself, watch the people who come into your life. Watch those divine connections that happen. Watch the opportunities that open up when you really start to love who you are. Because, you know, it's like the old you washes away. And it's like you said, there's a grieving process. I feel like every year there's a new me. There's a grieving process. It's like, all right, rest in peace today.
Like, get your ass.
Get on out here.
It's a new day.
To go. But I see how the more that I start to love myself, the more my circle changes. And opportunities that are unbelievable start to happen because it's a new vibration I'm sending out.
I'm a firm believer that that's what big dick energy is.
Yeah.
Like when we
I
talk
didn't see that
about,
coming.
when we talk about, you said it so eloquently. My idea and perception
like
of
that,
big dick energy is, but no, we talk about, like, for instance, Rihanna. We always like, Rihanna got that big dick energy.
Yeah.
Really, it is just like Rihanna loves herself.
She there now.
You were like, wait a minute, wait, let me bring it back. But
And I love
like,
thick girl Rihanna, by the way.
I love
Yeah.
And I'm sure Rihanna has her own issues or whatever, but Rihanna clearly is not.
She ain't that young.
She is getting what she deserves.
Yeah.
And nothing less.
Yeah.
And that is just the way that she operates in the world, and look at what is happening for her as a result.
Yeah.
When I think about, like, what that BDE represents, I think it represents self-love.
Yeah.
You know, self-love, self-affirming, like that energy. Because what it is saying is that regardless of who I am or how I stand, I deserve.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want it, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
I got a big dick.
I got it. And on that note, we're going to pause and come back with part 2 of the first episode of season 2's Love No Limit show. And thank you guys for being here, and thanks to everyone who is tuning in.